It's interesting that you talk about the abundance of culture here, but I think at the same time we're struggling for our own identity. What is it exactly? What does it mean to be a Taiwanese? Do you feel this way? Okay, so I guess my first very general question is, how do you feel so far about upcoming presidential election?
Not very hopeful.
4 years ago when we first met, you were so enthusiastic about the whole thing.
I was really enthusiastic because that was the first time I'd ever actually got my hands in politics. Now we have, our choices are between two old men who can't talk in complete sentences.
One can.
Not really. He has the capability, but he still doesn't. And the other one, he doesn't know where he is half the time. That's what it feels like. So, I don't know if you've seen some of his live interviews, Biden,
of course.
And you're like, what is this guy saying, man?
So it's been a terrible year for the United States, to name a few, the pandemic, the jobless situation.
Yeah, it's been kind of rough. I was watching a documentary with a friend the other day, and he was talking about people, their lives, and how they coped with the COVID situation. And there were people in the interview that were crying because it was so bad. And me and my friend were like, dude, what happened? We missed this completely. And there's no way we can say, oh, hey, I remember the COVID pandemic of 2020 and how bad it was. And we didn't have it bad at all here. We still had public transportation. We could still go to, of course there were some places like clubs and bars that were closed down just for a short period of time. But still,
we didn't go into total lockdown.
We're working. Sure. Virtually everyone's.
And we're doing this right now.
Yeah, so I feel safe here.
You wouldn't go back?
No, not right now.
Not right now.
Not right now.
You've lived in here for almost 11 years right now.
Yeah.
And I've noticed you went to a lot of exotic places.
Yeah.
Why is that? What's so fascinating?
The fascinating thing to me is when I was young, my grandfather, he instilled this passion of learning to me, and it was just we would have discussions about some faraway culture, or what do we think humans are going to be like in the future, and what were they like in the past. And we were just constant learning, and I came over here to Taiwan, and I just started learning the culture, and I discovered in Taiwan, there's 16 Aboriginal tribes. There's people who came over here during the Civil War in China. There's people who came over here from China even before that, hundreds of years ago. They speak Taiwanese or Hokkien, and they speak Hakka. And there's so much culture here. Taiwan is such a small place, but it's packed with so much culture.
Well, let alone we have influence from Dutch, from Spain, from Korea, even, right? There's
so much culture packed in this little island. It's just, when are you gonna finish learning about everything here? It's
interesting that you talk about the abundance of culture here, but I think at the same time we're struggling for our own identity. What is it exactly? What does it mean to be a Taiwanese? Do you feel this way?
I do, and I think Taiwan constantly being invaded by different countries didn't really help that. It's a mixed culture, and the thing is, you can mix these cultures together and make it your own. American culture is a mixture of other culture. When the white people first, Europeans, when we first moved over to the US, you had Irish, you had UK, you had German, you had French, and they all brought their own cultures. And over time, it just became American culture. So when you see this stuff, you think, oh, that's American. And I think Taiwan can do this. Taiwan can easily do this. In Japan, they're able to take their traditional clothing, their traditional music, and put it into modern music, modern fashion.
It looks very trendy.
It looks very fashionable. It doesn't look like a 300-year-old piece of clothing. It looks like, oh, that's Japanese. That was pretty cool. I want to get involved in that. That's a cool part of culture. So you take the old and the new and you put it together, and it just becomes new. It becomes now. I saw a you know the Taiwanese puppets, the budaishi. So I saw one puppet, and I thought it was really interesting. They took every like a piece of clothing, a piece of fashion from every culture that has lived in Taiwan, except for the Aborigine, because I think there was like some law that like prevented that. But they were able to put Japanese, Chinese, Dutch, Spanish, everything into this doll. Okay. One doll. And I mean, it was, you can see the different layers, like, oh, that's Japanese, that's this and this. I mean, but I think combining stuff like that, it just takes the first person to start doing this and to be discovered. And people will be like, okay, well, that's who we are as Taiwanese. We are a mixture of all these cultures. What's wrong with that?